The latest in discussions over Ukraine. Apparently, America has reached out to Moscow and said, here you go, I've got Ukraine to agree to their side. They want an immediate ceasefire. Balls in your court, Mr. Putin. And I think, as to be expected, Mr. Putin has said, well, OK, you know, we like the idea of a ceasefire, but it's got to be on my terms. And his terms, all the things that he's been saying for the best part of forever. And, well, I don't think it's really going to plan, but can Trump win it back? Let's speak to Cormac Smith, former advisor to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. Cormac, great to have you back on the programme. Now, I know that you have been sort of, you know, relatively, I think you've been relatively supportive of the idea of trying to get something sorted out and not continue with this war of attrition. And Zelensky has been brought to the table and now seems to say, OK, fine, we're going to go along with what America's saying. But Putin isn't doing the same, is he?
No, he's not. Good morning, Alex. It's nice to join you as usual. Look, you're quite right. I am supportive of something that would bring this horrible genocidal war and the killing and suffering that goes along with it to an end. But it cannot be peace at any cost. And actually, it doesn't matter at the end of the day what my view is. It's the view of the Ukrainian people. I think Vladimir Putin's response so far has been absolutely predictable. He seems to have crafted his response in a way that it cannot be interpreted as an absolute no to Donald Trump, which he would not want to do. But of course, his demands are remaining absolutist. Not only does he want to keep all the land that he already has, but he wants to take the parts of the four oblasts that he annexed in 2022. And including two cities, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson. He wants to take those also. He is making demands that if there is a ceasefire, during the ceasefire, the Ukrainian army should not be able to resupply or to do anything. Well, does that apply to the Russian army as well? He will be demanding that Ukraine's army be effectively neutered, leaving Ukraine vulnerable for when he wants to come back later, which he undoubtedly will, given a chance. And he is putting out an absolute no to European forces on the ground to keep any peace. So I think we knew what Putin was going to say. The unknown now is how Donald Trump will react to the Russian stance, because there is a big question mark, certainly there has been in my mind for a long time, about whether Trump is in Putin's pocket or not, i.e., does Putin actually have something on Trump?
Oh, interesting. The compromat question comes up again, because it does, from all outside perspectives, look rather much like he has sort of acquiesced to Putin's power. And Putin, in return, seems to be saying, well, look, I've invaded Ukraine and I want to keep what I've got, and there to be absolutely zero repercussions. No foreign peacekeepers, as you said, a ban on NATO membership for Ukraine. Ukraine having to limit the size of its army, basically opening up the door in future, when Donald Trump's no longer president, for one imagines Russia going back in and taking more of what they've already got. What do you think of the ideas of Polish President Andrzej Duda, who has basically said a way around this for us, or a way around this as a deterrent, could be for American nuclear weapons to be stationed in Poland?
Well, this is alarming for any of us in Western Europe who have had the luxury of growing up taking peace and security for granted, isn't it? But, you know, I've been saying since I went out to Ukraine in 2016 that we need to see Russia through Ukrainian eyes and the eyes of the other people in the eastern neighborhood, in particular the Baltics and the Poles. So, of course, Mr. Duda is asking that American nuclear weapons be positioned on Polish soil as a deterrent. This will shock many, many people, no doubt. But what I would say, you and I, Alex, you're a little bit younger than I am, I think, but we certainly grew up in the period of mad, mutually assured destruction. And that was the concept that neither side would use their nukes because it would mean obliteration for both. I would quote one of our own military men, the current head of the British Army, who said before Christmas that the British Army isn't ready to fight, and if we're not ready to fight, we're not ready to deter. Somebody else once said the best way to avoid war is preparing for war. So, you know, Putin must be deterred with strength. So I think the point the Polish president is making is that he wants maximum deterrence. And they understand, they grew up with this, they understand that the only language that Russia understands is strength, and that is the only way that they can deter. So I find it alarming, but having spent 11 years now working with people in that part of the world, I can understand where he is coming from.
Now,
we're currently...
Yes, I was going to say, the thing is, right, so we've got Steve Witkoff, who's over there, the envoy to Moscow, having conversations with the representatives of Russia. Trump saying they're in very serious discussions. But the difficulty we've got is, where do we now go to apply sanctions on Russia? How much further can we stretch? How much more can be done? Because at the moment, Trump seems to be busying himself with what appears to be applying financial sanctions on Europe through some of his tariffs. Yeah. And Russia, I'm not sure what the approach is. He simply said that he hopes Russia will do the right thing. Well, guess what? If Putin's given a choice between doing the wrong thing and getting away with it and doing the right thing and not getting anything out of it, we know what he's going to take.
Alex, been a professional communicator for most of my life. I love my sound bites. And the first sound bite that I developed and deployed as early as January 2022, when I started doing interviews, was arm Ukraine to the teeth and sanction Russia back to the Stone Age. If that had been done, I believe we could have seen the end of the war by the end before 2023, certainly after the fall of Kherson in late 22. We haven't done it. Now, Donald Trump has the ability to do that. The Russian economy is in free fall. He could break Russia's back economically, and he could flood Ukraine with the sort of weapons that they have been crying out for, that they still do not have enough of. Will he do that? I doubt it very much. But as I started off by saying, it's very easy, or at least I found it easy to know or to predict what Vladimir Putin would say. What I'm finding it much harder to predict at the moment is what Donald Trump will say and do when Putin does not play ball with him. Will he ultimately stand up to Putin?
That is the big question, isn't it? And I'm with you on that. It's really hard to say. You know, we know where Zelensky's at. He's put his card on the table. We know where Europe is at. We know where the UK is at. And I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump is not going to want to be shown up. I don't think he's going to want to have his bluff called by Putin. And I mean, in terms of those sanctions, what is it exactly that America can do sanctions-wise? Because the problem is Russia, whatever the West decides to do against Russia, it's kind of got the tacit economic support, at least, of China, India, Brazil and South Africa, who Putin's actually turned round and thanked for their noble mission to end the fighting to casualties. I mean, we know that those countries could be potentially involved in a ceasefire deal, but the BRICS nations, so to speak, have happily been filling up Russian coffers this whole time by buying their cut price oil and gas to build their own economies, and have sort of said, well, we're staying out of this, it's our national interests first. So what is it that America can do that would really nobble Putin?
Well, look, I'm not a sanctions expert and I can't really comment on the detail, but I have been, I heard the other day that Russia's reserves are falling fast. They're down to 30 billion, which in terms of a country of 143 million people is not a lot. And of course, they are eating through huge resources and through their war effort. I think we can be assured that America has very, very significant levers and ability to hurt the Russian economy. We know, despite the support that you quoted of China and others, we know that that inflation is rocketing in across the Russian Federation. We know that the living standards of the average Russian are plummeting. I heard a statistic the other day. The average Russians now spends over 50% of their income just on food. That's medieval levels, or certainly pre-industrial age levels of consumption, leaving very, very little for, the other niceties of life. We hear stories of butter being put in security containers in shops because there was a because there was a run on people stealing butter. They really they really are struggling. Also on the stock exchange, we have seen the shares of major Russian companies plummeting. So there's no doubt that the collective West, with the aid of America, which we really have to have, could hurt Russia very, very much. And I think push them closer to the edge. But then that's one side is the sanctions. And I said sanctioning and then back to the Stone Age, which we've still never done. I think it was Steve Witkoff said, no, it wasn't actually. It was the man who said that Ukraine had been hit in the mouth with a lump of 2x4 recently. Said that sanctions were probably still only at a 3 out of 10 at the moment. So ridiculous. We've had an admission from the US side that an awful lot more can be done on sanctions. But the other side is, and the Ukrainians will tell us, give them all the armaments they need, give them more air defense to defend their civilians and their cities, but give them the long-range artillery and take all of the restrictions off them. That's where I would be as a friend of Ukraine. Can I see Donald Trump doing this? I'd like to think so, but I doubt it very much. But we don't know with Donald Trump. We don't know. We simply don't know.
He will want to go down in history as the man who brought peace. He's not going to want to go down in history as the man who squandered the opportunity for it. That is for sure. Cormac Smith, thank you ever so much, former advisor to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry.